Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be talking about our top 24 Dynasty defensive end rankings with tiers. Joe and I are both prepared with each of our rankings, and we're not going to be including rookies just yet because we don't know where they're going to land.
Hike!
So, Joe, we're going to be breaking this out into 5 tiers. So, start us off. Who do you got in tier number 5?
All right, in tier 5 at number 24, I've got Joey Bosa. At 23, I've got Jonathan Grenard. At 22, I've got Harold Landry. And at 21, I've got George Karlaftis.
Man, this is going to be so interesting. This could be so all over the board here. At 24, I've got defensive end Gregory Rousseau. 23, defensive end Jermaine Johnson. 22, defensive end Trayvon Walker. 21, defensive end Boye Mafe. And number 20, defensive end George Karlaftis. So this is interesting, Joe. I've got 5 players that are consistent in this tier. You've got 4. I do not have Joey Bosa. That was my reaction. Or Jonathan Grenard. Do you have anybody in my list that you do not have in yours?
Well, I don't have Russo or Mafe, but I will be talking about Jermaine Johnson and Trayvon Walker later.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you're a bit higher on those guys. Yeah, so I'll explain my take on Russo and Mafe. Maybe it's a little biased on my end with the Bills, but, Russo, I think he's got some potential. I really do. He's going to be 24 years old this season. And this is based on our scoring in our league. He's been defensive end 37, 29, and 33. So he hasn't been all that good. But the Bills have a rotation. Bills are not in a great cap, space situation. I think Leonard Floyd could be gone. I think A.J. Epinesa could be gone. And really it's going to end up being Gregory Rousseau and Von Miller. So they're probably going to add something, but I think it could allow him to finally sprout and be something that I think, based on his potential. With Mafe, I'm really excited about him. Mafe came on the scene this year. I believe he had 8 sacks. Finished as the defensive end 24 in our league this past year. Before that, he was defensive end 105. He's 25 years old, so he's actually a little bit older of a rookie, believe it or not. Or not a rookie, but a second-year player. But I'm really excited about what Mike McDonald could do for him. And when we saw him start to break out, again, this guy, I think, is a very good defensive coordinator. Don't know what he'll be like as a head coach. I think he could bring out the best for Mafe because he is a guy who has just a ton of potential. So that's why I put Mafe in the top 24. Why did you put Bosa and Grenard? I was not thinking Bosa at all, transparently. Grenard I considered.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know Bosa, he's been riddled with injuries, and that's been kind of tough. But I mean, he played 9 games. He had 6.5 in the 9 games, 6.5 sacks in the 9 games that he played. Forced a fumble. So I mean, I get that he's 28 years old, been battling injuries, but when the guy's on the field and plays, I mean, I feel like he's productive, and I think I couldn't see myself not having him in my top 24.
Wow. Yeah, I just think he's just dealt with so many injuries. I think he could be a cap casualty possibly for the Chargers. I don't really like his future going forward, but I think he's a name in my view. But
yeah,
how about
he's definitely a name.
What about Grenard?
Yeah, Grenard. I mean, he had a really good sack production with Houston. Obviously, I'm a little nervous about him. Depending on he's a free agent. I don't know. Assume he won't be back with the Texans. I think he's going to chase the money somewhere. Just not sure where he's going to go. But I mean, he really burst on the scene. Him and Will Anderson really had something cooking opposite each other in Houston. So I think he's showed off the talent he has, and he's got the speed. Just a matter of where he goes and can he still produce at that level with his new team.
One quick thought when it comes to Karlaftis. When I first started going through my rankings, I actually had Karlaftis way higher.
Interesting.
But then I kind of pulled him back because he's been good. I mean, I believe he had 10.5 sacks last year. His sack production has been pretty good. But if you look at our scoring, he was a defensive end 48 his rookie year and defensive end 34 in his sophomore year. He's only going to be 23 years old, so he's got age on his side. But at the end of the day, I just felt like his production wasn't good enough to really justify him being any higher. It looks like you agree.
Yeah, that's where I agree. I do think I see the potential. You mentioned his age. That's really intriguing as well. I think he can, take that next step. I even saw that in the playoffs. You could see them kind of growing, and I think if he carries it into the season, he could be better. With his current production, I know that's a lot of trying to forecasting, and that's kind of why I held him here.
So let's go over to tier number 4, Joe. Who do you have there?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, at number 20, I've got Jermaine Johnson. At 19, I've got Trayvon Walker. 18, Carl Granderson. 17, Hassan Reddick. And 16, Matt Judon.
Oh, boy. All right, so number 19, I've got Trey Hendrickson. 18, Harold Landry. 17, Matt Judon. 16, Khalil Mack. And then 15, Jalen Phillips. All right, Joe, so it looks like you and I are pretty similar. You had Jermaine Johnson and Trayvon Walker in tier 4. I had them a little bit lower than you. What made you have them be a tier 4 player?
Yeah, I just like their upside. Especially Jermaine Johnson caught my eye this year. I feel like he, increased his production, and I think that Jets defensive line has a lot of talent, and I think he could really start to take that next step. In our league, I mean, he averaged 17.31 points per game, which is okay. That's part of the reason I have him here. But 7.5 sacks is up 5 sacks from his rookie season. So I just think he had a nice tackle floor he gave you with 55 tackles as well this year. So I just saw something that in him this year that I think he could build on and continue to grow next year. And then similarly, with Trayvon Walker, I think I feel like he was kind of a developmental guy when the Jaguars took him so high, and everyone just saw he had immense talent and was that twitchy player. But obviously he just needs a little bit of time. He's another guy. I mean, 10 sacks this year, 52 tackles. He had 3.5 his rookie year, so he really took a jump there in the sack total this year. So I just think these guys are just young and athletic, and I think if they continue to grow, they deserve to be in this tier 4 here.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I do like them, and I considered it. To me, they're potential guys who could do even better. Like you said, right. I mean, in our league, Jermaine Johnson was defensive end 19, so I don't blame it at all. I think they both have potential. Just because for me, I just rated some of the veterans a little bit higher. A guy like I have Harold Landry higher than you. Looks like, I mean, are you even rating Trey Hendrickson at all in your top 24?
Yeah, I got Hendrickson higher.
Oh, wow. Okay. There's somebody that you got Mack higher too?
I don't have Khalil Mack.
Wow, you don't have Khalil Mack in the top 24? How is that possible? Khalil Mack was the defensive end 2 in our league this past year, and I think he had 17 sacks or something like that.
That's I just don't see that guy repeating what he did this past year.
Wow.
I don't know. I've never been.
Well, what makes you think you like him or Joey Bosa better? I mean, didn't you see more out of Mack than you did Bosa?
Yeah, I guess. Bosa's 28 years old. It's got a little bit of the age again. I
mean, Mack's 33. I mean, yeah. I mean, and Mack's a free agent. Well, no, he'll probably get cut, I think, and then he'll become a free agent. And then where does he go?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know. Maybe that's just my Khalil Mack bias. I've never been a big
you haven't
Khalil Mack fan. 16. That's crazy high for a 33-year-old in my book. I would rather have, Matt Judon over him at 31 years old, and a guy that before he tore his biceps, I mean, he was averaging a sack per game in the 4 games that he played. And
get ready for those tomatoes, Joe. You're going to be getting some tomatoes.
That's great. He had a great year, but how many disappointing years did he have prior to that? You had him, and then all of a sudden you get rid of him, and he does well. I think this could be an outlier, and I don't know, what his upside really is after this.
Well, speaking of outliers, I don't have Carl Granderson in my top 24, which should be no surprise to you.
No, that's not surprising.
But he was a nobody until this year.
Right, but I mean, he's a younger player.
See, I just feel like you called him out as a potential sleeper, and he broke out, and then you kept on saying how he was a pick that your IDP pick of the week. So I feel like he had to put him in there. He's your guy.
Yeah, I mean, I like him, but I feel like I didn't overshoot him or anything. I mean, um, he's a productive player. He scored pretty well in our league as well. So
He did. I think he did good. Wow, I guess I shouldn't be surprised with Mac. Do you think we rated? I disagree with you on Reddick. I'll talk about him later. But do you think we ranked Judon too low? I considered putting him possibly higher. I mean, in our league, he was over the past 4 years defensive end 23, 9, 6, and then 98. He's going to be like 32 next year, coming off that bicep injury. Is that kind of your thought as to why you held him down?
that is the only reason he's down here. I mean, how much I like Matt Judon.
I know you do.
I wanted to put him higher. It just kept coming. Like some of these guys that are a lot younger than him that I've got ranked ahead of him, and he's in, like you said, he's coming into his 30. He's going to be 32 years of age here, coming off that biceps injury. But like I said, I mean, the dude was averaging a sack per game in the 4 games he did play before tearing his bicep. I mean, he's been an ultra productive player, but yeah, the age and the injury is the only reason I got him here.
All right, so let's head over to tier 3. What do you got there?
Yeah, in tier 3 at 15, I've got Bradley Chubb. 14, I've got Jalen Phillips. 13, Trey Hendrickson. 12, Montez Sweat. And 11, Brian Burns.
Okay. All right, at number 14, I've got Alex Highsmith. 13, Montez Sweat. 12, Brian Burns. 11, Hassan Reddick. And 10, Danielle Hunter. Yeah, so this is an interesting one, Joe. You might think I'm nuts. I don't have Bradley Chubb in my top 24. I struggled with him.
When you didn't put him in here the last couple of tiers here, so.
Well, I've been wondering about you too. Are you saying these different players? I'm like, who? Do you not have Alex Highsmith, or is he higher?
I don't have Highsmith.
You don't have Alex Highsmith in the top 24?
I don't.
Why?
Why don't you have Bradley Chubb in the top 24? He was better.
Because he tore his ACL. Who knows how he's going to recover? He's dealt with injury. He guy can't stay on the field, and now he just tore his ACL. How much confidence am I supposed to have in him?
Yeah, that's understandable. Highsmith, I don't know. I don't really trust him either.
I can't believe that. He was defensive end 24 this past season, defensive 8 the year before that, defensive end 17 the year before that, and then defensive end 53. He's 26, going to be 27 years old. You don't have him in the top 24?
Nope.
Did you even consider him? Did you just forget him? Or you consciously said, I do not want him?
I didn't forget him. I'll tell you that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think just benefiting from TJ Watt? Is that your thought? Is that once TJ Watt's a little older, when TJ Watt's no longer there, that he's just going to fall off?
I mean, he had 7 sacks this year. What do you want? I mean, and that's with playing opposite of TJ Watt. I mean, he went from 14.5 to 7. Wow. I mean, you want to put a guy with 7 sacks this is the defensive end position. You want sacks. And
I understand that, but he had 14.5 a year before that.
Right, but then why did he go down to 7? I mean, that's half. I want a guy that's going up, not dropping half his sacks. When he gets to play opposite of TJ Watt, he should have more than that.
I'm just shocked about that. That's wild. I disagree with you on Reddick completely. You have him at 17. I have him at 11. I mean, I feel like you're looking at recency bias here. I mean, in our league, Reddick was defensive end 26, but before that, he was defensive end 5, defensive end 11, and then defensive end 2. And he's going to be 30 years old. He's still got meat on the bone.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I was a little, 30 years old, and I don't know. Is what we've seen from him recently the player that we're going to see moving forward? That's what I was a little concerned.
Are you worried about like him coming out and saying he may get traded or he wants to get paid? Is that kind of influencing your thought?
Not really. He's saying he is, but I'm just concerned about the Philadelphia defense as a whole. This was a team that was a sack machine with Gannon at defensive coordinator, then last year they couldn't get any sacks, and including Hassan Reddick, he had a way worse of a year.
No,
So
I mean,
I don't know.
yeah, sometimes he completely disappeared. You're not wrong last year. I mean, he
Yeah,
was a
so
disappointment.
I don't know. He was a tough one. I thought about putting him higher.
Okay.
Ultimately, I just wasn't sure what to believe. Do I believe the past production, or do I believe what I see from this past year? And is it just philosophy and the Philly defense changes, so he just didn't perform as well? He's also 30. I don't know. I ended up putting him where I put him.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. As far as the other guys here, I mean, you and I are not far off here. Jalen Phillips, we had around the same. You just had him in a tier above. I kind of waffled on that, but guy hasn't really been able to stay healthy. So I feel like he kind of should be a tier below. That was my logic on that. Sweat and Burns, I agree with you. I actually had Sweat ahead of Burns when I first looked at my rankings, and I was like, you know what? I was like, I can't do that. Burns is, going to be 26, whereas Sweat's going to be 28. And Burns in our league has been defensive end 20, defensive end 22, defensive end 9, defensive end 22, and defensive end 6, compared to Sweat's 11, 20, 61, and 9. So, Burns didn't have a good year, but he's been more consistent and better. And he's the younger player. So I agree with how we did this. All right, Joe, so who do you got in tier number 2?
So in tier number 2 at 10, I've got Kayvon Thibodeau. 9, Josh Allen. 8, Will Anderson. 7, Nick Bosa. And at 6, Danielle Hunter.
What? 7, Nick Bosa. We're going to have a talk about that. Holy cow. Okay. Number 9, I've got defensive end Josh Allen. Number 8, defensive end Kayvon Thibodeau. Number 7, defensive end Will Anderson. And number 6, defensive end Aiden Hutchinson. Well, Joe, we need to start with Nick Bosa. You've got to explain yourself here. You have him at number 7. I am absolutely shocked by this. He's 26 years old. Based on my record, he was defensive end 10 last year in our league, then defensive end 2, 3, and then 145 because obviously he tore his ACL. So help me understand why you think he's number 7 here.
Yeah, 1 second here.
Oh, he's got a report. What's the report? What did we find in the report?
No, I don't have a report. I just was pulling up his stats here.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I feel like Nick Bosa is kind of he's a hot name, and people just kind of worship him for the being this great player. And maybe I'm focused too much on recency bias, but I mean, he had dropped down to 10.5 sacks this past year. He's always been a good tackler, but one thing I'm concerned with is and really seeing him and watching him up closely in the playoffs is he's got to stop over pursuing, because he just takes himself out of too many plays. And, they brought in all these other pass rushers opposite him. They have one of the best defensive lines. And I don't understand how a guy of his caliber can only get 10.5 sacks and why he doesn't have more. So
interesting.
I don't know. I think,
but his pressure count's high though. Sacks can be kind of a fluky metric.
I get that. But at the end of the day, I mean, we don't get points for that.
No, we don't. I mean, I don't think we have much disagreement. I mean, Alan, you and I are the same. We both have him at 9. Thibodeau, of course, you have him lower than me. I wanted to put Thibodeau higher, but I can't. He's been too much of a flash in the pan. Although I do like flash, want it more than just in the pan. And then when it comes down to Aiden Hutchinson, of course, you have him later on. He's probably number 1, the Michigan man that you are.
No, he is not number 1.
That's good. That's good. But I otherwise, I think we're in pretty good shape. I like Will Anderson a lot. I know I have him high, but I really think that, he showed, he did well in his rookie year, and I think he's only going to improve. He's going to be 23 years old next season. He had a huge pressure count. I think he's going to be the next elite guy. I think he's above this group. I feel most confident in him being able to go into that tier 1 conversation, possibly as soon as next season. The other one you and I kind of disagreed on was Danielle Hunter. I know we were with our friend, the IDP Hunter, and I made mention I thought Hunter should be in the top 10. You agreed with me, but it looks like after review, you had him even higher than I did.
Yeah, I just after looking over his production and kind of where he finished in our league, he's one of the top finishers, and I know I got rid of him and didn't expect this out of him, but just impressive that what Hunter turned into the season he did, and really without a lot of help on the counterpart on the opposite side of him on that defense. So credit to him.
I don't know about that. Wanham was pretty good this year.
Right, Wanham was pretty good, but
He's not
nobody
a
really.
name.
Yeah, nobody expected him to be that good, but okay. So he had a decent running mate. But I tell you, not anything like what Nick Bosa has, and this guy still had more than 10.5 sacks.
Oh,
and so I think, and no matter, not really concerned about him leaving Minnesota potentially. I think wherever Danielle Hunter goes, he could be a dominant force, and being that he hasn't had the biggest help along that defensive line, and I think he can excel anywhere he goes.
Oh, I don't disagree with you. I mean, I was concerned about his neck injury. And then, honestly, his neck injury really didn't.
It's been an afterthought.
Yeah, it really has. Yeah, I agree. I here's the thing. I had him higher. I really did, and I just was reviewing it, and I actually had him higher than Josh Allen. But then I looked at Josh Allen, and I was like,
see, that's so interesting. When we did a video with IDP Hunter, you didn't like where you thought he had Allen too high.
I know, but after looking at it a little bit more, I mean, you can't refute the numbers, Joe. He was defensive end 5 last year, then 11 the year before that, 13 the year before that, and then 105. That's pretty consistent.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. I mean, he did. I was saying that I thought that we should be careful that we're going to see these numbers in and out going forward at that 5 spot. But when I looked back at his previous, 2 seasons before that, he was a lot more consistent than I remember him being. I didn't think he was that consistent. So that made me feel like, okay, he's probably more deserving than I gave him credit for.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, Joe, let's go to tier number 1. I can't wait to hear what you got in tier 1 here.
Yeah, still not surprised you gave him a disservice to my guy Aiden Hutchinson at number 6 there. But
please.
So at 5, I've got Myles Garrett, the defensive player of the year. 4,
shouldn't be, but yeah.
TJ Watt. 3, Micah Parsons. 2, Aiden Hutchinson. And at number 1, Max Crosby.
This is ridiculous. This is such a homer vibe over here. Give me a break.
Jeez, man. They're mine. You have yours.
Oh my. At 5, I've got Myles Garrett. 4, who should have been the defensive player of the year, TJ Watt. 3, I've got Nick Bosa. 2, Max Crosby, and then 1, Micah Parsons. To start it off, we actually aren't that much different as far as Garrett and Watt. I didn't know where you'd land on that. And I think we have it right. I mean, Watt is just, to me, he's just unbelievable. I mean, think about this. In our league, this past year, he was number 1. The year before that, he was 38 because he got injured. Then the year before that, he was 1. And then the year before that, guess what? He was 1. He had the hat trick. I mean, how do to me, I was like, this guy is so good. If it wasn't for his age, being almost close to 30, I mean, I have a really hard time not having this guy closer to 1. I mean, this guy is the ultimate cheat code. Myles Garrett, is good in himself. He's very consistent. He went 9.444. I'd love to have either one of these guys, to be honest with you. I actually like Watt and Garrett better, but because of the age aspect, Parsons and Hutchinson and Crosby, those guys, or sorry, you've got Hutchinson. I don't have Hutchinson, but Bosa, right? But you could lump him in there, right? I have him at 6. All those guys are younger. You're going to have a higher longevity, but you can't beat it with Garrett and Watt right now, in my view.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, that's honestly, like, if TJ Watt was 26 right now, I'd have him number 1. I mean, it's just he's coming up. I think he's about to be. He's either 30 or going to be playing his age 30 season.
Yeah.
And then he's coming off another injury that's been an issue with him. So, but I mean, there's nobody else though when they're on the field. I mean, this guy's just a dominant force. everything. I mean, the sacks, the pass deflections to getting the interceptions, and he's really the everything for the Pittsburgh Steelers defense.
Oh, yeah, I mean, he's incredible. And, I mean, honestly, even Garrett, too, man. I remember that one game where he had that safety and everything. I mean, these two guys, we've been really spoiled with their level of play. I mean, that's the caliber of what they've been able to do is outstanding.
Yeah, I just, like we talked about with Steve as well on that other podcast show with Garrett, he was so dominant in the first half of the season. Really don't know if it was that shoulder or what happened in the second half, but he just really slowed down. Would have liked to seen him finish that last year stronger. Yeah,
as far as the other guys go, we talked about Bosa. I don't understand. I mean, to me, I think he's shown that he's been able to perform really well. I don't see why you wouldn't have him in tier 1. But let's talk about your Michigan man there, Aiden Hutchinson. You believe he's the second guy. You must be thinking he's going to make this big jump. I mean, he had 51 total tackles and 52 tackles, pretty much the same, 9.5 sacks and 11.5 sacks. Obviously, he did take a step in the playoffs, so maybe you're taking that into account and you think that he's going to go even further than this. But in my view, I don't see how you could have him better than Parsons. To me, I think Parsons, I mean, I obviously have him number 1. But his age, I mean, he's very young, and he's had 14 sacks, 13.5 sacks, and 13 sacks. In our league, he's been defensive end 6, 3, and 2, and he's going to be 25 years old.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's 2 years older than Aiden Hutchinson. But I think similarly to I think there's more to Aiden Hutchinson's game, and he's going to continue to develop. Like during the playoffs, he's already working on the spin move, and like Max Crosby, this past year, he had a ton of pressures, just wasn't getting there. And then all of a sudden, we started Max Crosby started to turn those pressures into sacks. And if that happens for Hutchinson, also, I think Detroit is either going to improve their secondary or they're going to get this guy a running mate. And if they give him additional help and teams just can't focus, because, I mean, he's literally the one guy on the defensive line, can't let number 97 beat us. If they fix that problem, he could even be more dominant. And that's kind of what I'm banking on for that next step.
I mean, Hutchinson and Crosby are your type of guys, though. You love that profile of edge rusher. I mean, that's who you would want.
I'll take them over the Micah Parsons and the Nick Bosas of the world all day, because these guys work hard. They put in the work. They're grinders. They've got the motor. They've got the hustle. They might not have the flash and the speed that Micah Parsons has, but Micah Parsons gets lost in the sauce in the run game because he's too small, and they just blow him right out of the water. Can't do that with these guys.
Yeah, I see Parsons as the ultimate chess piece. Guy can be moved around.
But they don't use him like that anymore.
Well, you don't know that. Dan Quinn's no longer the defensive coordinator, although I don't have much confidence in Mike Zimmer either. That might make it be worse, honestly.
I mean, Mike Zimmer's a good defensive coordinator. We'll see how creative he gets. But to me, they need to let this guy Parsons move around and let him be that chess piece, because I've just seen it where it's just too easy to take him out of the game, because literally all you have to do is run at him. And unless they really need to beef up the linebackers, because their linebackers were just too small and teams could just dominate them.
Yeah, I mean, I would rather have been Rex as a defensive coordinator, but
yeah, because I mean, I tell you what, that would have been a way better move, because Rex Ryan would have known how to use this guy.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. He would have loved it.
You know what? At that point, I might have put Micah Parsons higher at that point, because I mean, he'd be more utilized better. I honestly think he's being used as a disservice as the edge rusher. As talented he is, I think if you allow him to line up over a guard or the center, there's no way a guard or center is going to touch him. He's too fast.
So that does it for our Dynasty defensive end rankings with tiers. Hopefully you found that helpful. And hold on there, because we're going to be doing defensive tackles next. We got linebackers. We're talking about cornerbacks. We're not even just breaking this down on the defensive backs. We're talking cornerbacks and safety. This is some prime IDP content that you're not going to want to miss. So if you're new to the channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Hit that notification bell so you make sure to see when the episodes come out. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.